Brian. Next up we've Declan Varley to officially launch the book. Declan is a Ballinrobe native. In fact, Liam and himself sat together in Liam's leaving cert year. I say Liam's leaving cert year because it took Declan a couple more goals. But it was the maths that caught him, not the English, obviously. Declan and Liam were involved in reviving the popular weekly parish newsletter, The Eavesdropper. Now Declan is a highly regarded journalist. He's the group editor of the Galway Advertiser, where his original style makes him a compelling weekly read. His editorials have earned him a number of international awards. As an author, he has published 6 books. You have a bit of catching up to do there, Liam. Starting with Kittyland, his outstanding account of student life in Galway, and continuing with Sure It Could Happen, Night Music, The Elephant's Graveyard, Under the Butterfly Shed, The Confessions of Peadar Gibbons, and a 2023 publication on Mayo football entitled A Biography for 9 Lives, Mayo. We are honoured to have him back in his hometown to launch On the Way Out. Ladies and gentlemen, Declan Varley.
Takes me a while to get up here. Yes, I was in Ballinrobe CBS so long that everybody else thought I was the principal, you know. But yeah, I'm delighted to be here this evening. In this building, my dad, Paddy, used to spare time wire buildings and things, and this is one of the buildings that was wired and was often we were often called upon in the 70s to actually put in plugs and wires. So if the lights go tonight, we know who to blame, you know. But the canon who was back then, who was here, was the Canon Willoughby, and he was married into the Barber family in Salrock House, which overlooks Kilry Harbour, and that was a very literary house because it's the house that poet Richard Murphy and Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes and there were various romantic entanglements that took place or didn't take place. So there's a great literary richness to this building and to the connections and to the town. Indeed, I can recall my mother telling me that my grandfather, he used to work for Kinney's was the big house at the bottom of Bridge Street there, and he worked for them in the 20s and 30s. That's like the last 20s and 30s, not this one. And he was like a butler stroke, janitor stroke, driver. And when George Moore, the writer of The Moors of Moore Hall, famous George Moore, when he passed away in London, and his remains were coming back into Ballinrobe, and my grandfather, who was a very discreet man, unlike his grandson, he was sent out to collect the remains of George Moore. George was coming in an urn, and the town were expecting George to come back in a box. So my grandfather was coming down with the urn under his arm, and people asking him what time is the train coming in with Mr. Moore's body on it, and my grandfather was totally discreet and never let on that he had George under his arm. But it just goes to show you that like great writers, we're in a town that gave a word to the English language. The ashes of George Moore were carried through this town from the train station up in the Kilmaine Road, through past the street and probably down Bridge Street before it was deposited in Moore Hall. You know, so there's a great richness and a great literary tradition to Ballinrobe, and Liam is carrying this on, and all the people who Liam inspires, and on all the various writers like Mick Donnan and all the various journalists who have come out of Ballinrobe as well. So there's a great literary tradition, and I think it's only fitting that Ballinrobe is campaigning to get its own art centre, because it deserves it. Because we have a beautiful place here this evening, but it would be lovely if everyone had a seat, and if it was a place that purpose-built for artistic endeavour, and hopefully with the right political will, it'll happen. And maybe the next time when I come down again, maybe Lee might invite me back to launch another book. It might be in the Ballinrobe Art Centre, so hopefully that'll be the case, you know. I'm delighted to be in the library because I feel at home in libraries because I grew up in one. The old library used to be out there at the end of the arch, to the left of the arch, and after that then it was in half our house in High Street. So at night when the library would be closed, I snuck in there and I'd read all the books to my heart's content in my own private county library, effectively. But that was great. I got to know Liam inside the walls of Christian Brothers School, and as I said, I was there so long, everyone was a classmate and associated. Like, I was a classmate of Liam, I was a classmate of Michael, I was probably a classmate of Billy at some stage. We formed a kinship in English classes taught by Billy, his dad. He was a wonderful teacher, a really wonderful teacher. And I credit Billy with teaching me the power of words and the impact of a well-placed sarcasm. You know, where other teachers could catch you with a flying glance or catch you on the side of the head, but Billy would disarm you with a well-crafted remark to put you in your place, and you'd be stunned. You'd be sitting there for a minute afterwards wondering, what did he say? And he's really sort of had a go at me there, but it would be so well constructed, and I didn't know that words could be used. It just came out in such a style. But Billy pumped oxygen through the heart of this town for many decades by documenting the ebb and flow, the joys and the tragedy through his district notes for several local newspapers. And in these notes he created this great sense of place that we have about Ballinrobe, because the district notes are great. They tell you who won, who passed away, who was born, who got a degree, who did what. These things are great, and for decades and decades Billy made sure that the history of Ballinrobe was being told in real life. You know, in this sense he created a sense of place, and he documented the hierarchy within the town. And hierarchies are important in small towns. And when I say small town, I don't mean to be in any way disparaging, but in towns like Ballinrobe, like there is a hierarchy that's great, and it's fantastic. And I'm glad that he has created the stage for Liam's book. And as a child, I also remember reading a copy of The Bridge, and The Bridge was a periodical historical magazine that used to come out in Ballinrobe maybe once every 400 years or so. You know, it seemed to be, it had no fixed publication date, but I think in my lifetime, I think there were about 3, and they were distinguishable by the different colours, the blue one, a red one, and a green one. But I remember in the blue one, I remember especially seeing a photograph of Liam's mum, the wonderful Ina, being presented by Charlie High with an award for making the best brown bread in Ireland. So you can see the creativity in a grounded setting was at the heart of Liam's family, and his fictional work, and indeed his journalism was the physical and literary manifestation of all of that. You know, so the comings and goings of a town would have been brown bread and butter at the table in the Horan household. Now, in time, Liam, originally as a local reporter and later as a specialised national correspondent, achieved a veritable PhD in knowing what is local and what matters and what makes towns tick and breathe. And even in his current role, the potential of encouraging the development of hubs is breathing fresh life into small towns. So Liam and I did a lot of gallivanting for many, many years, but of all the sins that Liam and I have conceived and committed while gallivanting together, I suppose the one that comes to mind for me tonight is the sin of envy. For more than 4 decades I've been envious of this man, I really have. Not merely for his rugged good looks and that disarming dimple that he uses to shine us all, but because of his ability to know towns and to reflect them in his writing. Now, sometimes when we are writing, we are just cataloguing the collision of humanity with nature and geography, and how that nature and geography shapes us in the stories. I don't know if any of you saw the TV series last year, Smother on RTE. It was set on the Clare coast. This was kind of a family killing each other. But if you listen back to that, one constant was the sound of the waves of the Atlantic coast lashing the coast. And in one sense, the coast and the tide and the sea, or the ocean, became a character in that series. And in one sense too, in this book, in Liam's book, the town, the fictional town he has is Rathfen, but also I say a lot of it is based on his experiences in towns like Ballinrobe and around the West. Have become central characters to the work, you know? Because in many works of fiction, a small town is far more than a backdrop. It becomes a central character in its own right. Unlike in the cities like Dublin or Galway or Limerick or Cork, which often overwhelm with endless motion, small towns reveal themselves slowly in works of art. Their rhythms are steady, their secrets are layered, their personalities are shaped by generations of familiar footsteps on the same streets. Writers like Liam return to these places again and again because a small town offers something priceless. It offers a setting with a soul, and one that quietly influences every action and every emotion in the story. Now, in many of her songs, the American songwriter and singer Mary Chapin Carpenter, she captured the quiet joy and the deep-rooted comfort of small town life, the way ordinary moments become touchstones of belonging. And I think in Liam's work, what makes a small town so powerful on the pages of Liam's work is its intimacy. Everyone knows everyone. In a small town, everyone knows you. They know your business, they know what you do, they know who you are. And that closeness creates tensions and alliances and unspoken histories that shape the narrative just as profoundly as any protagonist. In this book, the characters know each other through where they have come from more so than where they're going. Because history shapes you in a small town. That's why people come and go from small towns, because, when you're in a town, you're defined by who you are and what you are. And maybe in a city or a larger town, you can actually have an anonymity that you don't in a small town. But in a work of art or a work of fiction, a small town is a very valuable thing. In this book, history shapes you in the small town. The Glahan's Lane, which is in this book, can hold decades of memories. A local shopkeeper can carry more narrative weight than an entire metropolis, and a widower can be seen as petty or opportunistic. The small scale magnifies the human heart, allowing the readers to feel the significance of the smallest gestures and glances, and Liam manages to capture these so well. And small town and the nuances are rich with meaning in Liam's story. There's fear and love and attraction. There's also a sense of what it takes to survive in a small town, economically, psychologically. And in a world in as much turmoil as ours, it's a relief to escape into that space. And that's why reading this book was a real joy. And I'm sure that those of you who are about to sort of delve into it tonight will get the same feeling. Now, it seems a bit odd when our lads of our vintage, Liam, are described as brave new voices in writing, but really it is the case with Liam, because every sentence is crafted and is dripping with meaning. Every nuance is maximised, and not a word is wasted, not a single word, and I applaud him for that. You would think that after a lifetime in writing words on every conceivable subject, that there would be little space for Liam's writing to grow into, because he's been covering everything for years and years and years. But over the past few years, we used to meet on Thursday nights, myself and John and Brian and others. We'd meet in a halfway house, maybe in Hertford or Claregalway, and test drive new stories. And I have seen his skill and dedication to the craft reach unparalleled levels, and it's no wonder that his debut novel was award-winning. Liam would workshop a paragraph for an hour, and if it didn't feel right, he would get the boot. So this is a wonderful novel debut. I am proud, firstly, that he's a Ballinrobe man, proud too that he's been a long-time friend and ally, and I hope and I know that surely there's more to come in this regard. I also applaud him for the work, as I mentioned earlier, the work he has done in inspiring other writers by having gatherings of writings. And as Brian mentioned there, I would just get along and see what's inside your head and write, because poetry and stories, they're better on the pages than lost in your memories, So a lifetime of observation has not gone wasted with Liam, and his insight into modernity and Irish rural life will surely go on to produce more novels, and I look forward to those. I urge you all to ensure that this book is on every bedside table and in every Christmas stocking this winter. To Noreen, I'm sure, who has lived and breathed every word of this book with Liam, enjoy this evening. And to Liam, my heartiest congratulations, as I take pure delight in formally launching this novel. Thank you.